Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Let's Chat Live, a show where we interview new and upcoming podcasts to find out more about their show and why you should listen. I am your host, Robert, and with me today is Let's Chat's own Chris Ball.
Hey man, I gotta do them. How are you today?
I can't complain too much. With the pandemic and everything, and working in the arts, of course, my hours have been
Yeah.
cut back a little bit, but today was actually my first admin day back in the office. I worked 9 to 5. It's the first day I've been in my office since July. So, it's a weird day, but it's, somewhere back to normal. How you doing?
That's good. I wish I could be better.
Ugh.
Job hunting still. Uh, I lost mine at the end of October, but it wasn't COVID related, but it became a COVID problem getting
Mm,
work again and
yeah.
getting stable work again. And then like, hey, I can't work weekends because of the kid. And it's always something. So I was still pushing that. That was in October. It's been almost 3 months. I had no idea until today.
Well, I am gonna do my best for the next hour at least to alleviate that, and we'll make a nice getaway for you.
And that's why I'm having fun right now.
Awesome. Well, today, in the perfect transition, we are joined with Rich from Not Suitable for Adults, which is a podcast where two parents review the shows their kids watch and break them down. Sometimes, a little too far. But hey, that's something that we all do. So without
Adulting.
further ado, here is Rich.
I'm here.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey, going great.
Hello. How you doing, sir?
Doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, thank you.
Absolutely.
Uh, we were talking a little bit before we went live. I did a crash dive into your show, and um it's something that I didn't know that I wanted before I listened, and it's
Mhm.
absolutely wonderful.
Oh,
It's, it
good.
really is.
It's always tickling to hear. That's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's as the father of two young kids, I often find myself just sitting there watching their shows, and some of their shows are, good, and I'll recommend them to other parents, and then there's shows where I'm just like, no, I think that channel's broken from now on.
Yeah. Oops. Oh no, that app's gone.
I deleted it. So,
I wish it was that easy for me. My kid watches YouTube through the smart TV, so you can't really make things disappear.
I have
Yeah.
deleted the YouTube app.
Have you?
Yes.
There
And then it comes
you go.
back, but sometimes the app just suddenly disappears because I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, I move it around an awful lot and make it kind of difficult, and then he'll steal someone's phone, and then it doesn't end. He's too smart for his own good.
Yeah, no, I get that too. So Rich, why don't you tell us a little background about your show and how it all began?
Yeah. My wife and I, so her name's Natalie, and she would normally be here, but we're trying to get our kid to sleep. um, so we about a year and a half ago we had begun to start thinking like it'd be fun to kind of do a podcast as something that we can do together because we tend to get really busy with our own stuff. And so we were like, yeah, well, we should. That would be a lot of fun, but what we didn't know we would do it about. And so actually, the our very first episode is about a show called Chip and Potato.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and we
Netflix show.
so we got to a point where we like that show. It's like really cute, but it's also got this sort of weird sort of quirk to it that was really getting on my nerves. And I realized I was thinking about it as if I were dissecting a show like or a movie with plot holes that I would pick on. And
Yeah.
literally had this moment where we're like, this show isn't for us. Like it wasn't made for us. Like we don't need to be picking it apart. We got to the point where we did this bit with so many of our friends so much we were trying to explain this show, and one day we were just like, that's the podcast. It's it's we have so many of these shows that we watch that we think way too hard about. So let's that's the show, and now we've been doing it for a little over a year now.
Wow, that's that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I've had that epiphany before where I've sat there and I've watched a show and I've, I've actually asked my wife while we were watching it, I'm like, I don't understand. And she's like, we're watching a show where there's trucks, but they're dinosaurs, and you don't understand this minor plot point. That's the part that's getting you hung up on. I'm like,
It's like, well, where did his mom come from? It's like, it doesn't
right.
matter.
Yes.
Oh boy.
So, but that's amazing. Well, I don't know if this is something you want to talk about, but how did you and your wife meet and things like that?
Yeah, so we actually met in college. We that was down here, and we're in Nashville, Tennessee.
Cool.
And we were both, and so I was the president of our choruses, of our college's chorus. I was a music education major, and she was a freshman when I was a senior coming in, and she was in the chorus with us, and we did a bunch of we did a lot of touring around and things like that, and just got to know her. There was this group of like the music nerds that would hang out in the music department like every night and like play cards and do homework or whatever. And she'd start showing up to that. She was a music education major at the time. She changed her major later. Um, and we just got to know each other and started going to movies. And that was like our main date. I think we watched like 50 movies in the like in the first year that we were together. We watched so freaking many movies like out at the movie theater. Um, and yeah, we actually got engaged really quickly, and then had kind of a long engagement. And we are going to be celebrating now our 11th anniversary in May.
Oh boy.
Well, congratulations. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's a great story. And you have one kid, two kids?
Just the one kid.
Just
Yeah,
the one?
yes, just the one.
Okay. Just the one. Just the one. Hey, one's enough.
That's right.
Oh boy, yeah, sure is.
Um,
I got my son here, and I got my daughter in California. So
yeah.
I got the baby mama syndrome.
I remember after my oldest was born, the doctor looked at my wife and she said, "Don't worry, second children, that's always easier." And my wife actually laughed at her. She was like,
Oh, wow.
and we would always laugh at people, and we're like, no, one and done, until we had a second.
Right.
But
Sure, it's only technically easy if it's from the same parents.
that's right.
You go from a different relationship, it's a whole other bag.
So you made a show about children's shows.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta ask, from all the shows that you've watched in the past year and a half, what would you say is your favorite show that you've been introduced to?
That is easy. It is Bluey. 100%. It's Bluey. We actually introduced Bluey to my in-laws, and they told me the other day that my father-in-law he watches Bluey when there's no grandkids around. Like
That's how real
just-
world it is. That's
he
what's
just
great
flips
about
it
it.
on, and he's like, "Yeah, this is fun to watch." And so, like, yeah, that's easily the best show that we've encountered so far.
Gotta love the Australians.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will. When our kids are watching that show, I'll sit there and they'll get up and they'll go do other things. My son's in virtual school right now, and so he'll go off and he'll do a school, and I'll just sit there and keep watching it, and
Right.
magically keep hitting the button to go to the next episode. Yeah, that's a fun one. That's a great show.
Yeah, our daughter will be sitting around, so she has like a Kindle that she like mostly plays games on, and then she watches TV on the when we're not like trying to take back over for a little while. um, we uh, we give her this tablet. And we're like, she'll start to play it, and then she's like, I want to watch right now. It's what's the there's a new, they're not new, but there's this new like family YouTube channel. I can't think what they're called. But there's this new family like trying to be the new Ryan.
There's a lot of those.
And they, I mean, they have a pretty well produced show and everything, but like it's the same deal. But we'll be like, are you sure you don't want to put on Bluey, because we could, that's, and like we'll start flipping over to Disney Plus, and she's like, no, I want this. Okay.
Well, it's like that sounds like me trying to get my son to watch the cartoons I watched when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I can get a version of what it is now. Like my son just started getting into Transformers, the rescue bots.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Because he got the toys at like Kohl's one day from my mother randomly, the ones that are just like a 2-step pop, and he's been watching that, and I'm like, oh, thank you. It's not, like I said, it's not Blippi. It's not, just another kid doing something like on like Roblox or something, and making my kid like fanatic about something he's not touching.
Now Blippi is actually no criticism, but like we enjoy Blippi. Cora's a big fan of that, and she at first, here's the deal with Blippi. For people who don't know about Blippi.
Oh, I know all about this dude. So yeah, go ahead. I know his history.
The thing is, he is crazy. He is crazy annoying when you first get him on there. But there are a couple of moments in a couple of his like episodes. I guess they're episodes. It's not really episodic, but in a couple of his videos that were super. They like totally won me over, and it was things like he was doing one time a tour of like emergency rescue vehicles. So like,
the earlier episodes,
and there was this, and he was doing one for the ambulance, and so he was explaining, here's what the ambulance is, here's the doors, here's the lights, here's the siren. Wow, look at all this stuff that's inside. And then he turned, and it was like this really cool thing. He turns to the camera and goes, listen, if you ever find yourself in one of these, it's going to be really scary, but the people in here are trying to help you. So you just need to know that everyone in here is trying to help you. I was like, that is so cool. That's not the kind of thing that you see a lot on that kind of like, it's one thing to like, here's how ambulances work. But the fact that he's like, this is what this is. And if you ever find yourself in one, that's a good thing. Like someone's helping you. That's good. And so moments like that kind of won me over. And now it's like, now it's not so bad. And also she doesn't want to watch him as much. So we get him in small doses.
Yeah, I think we're on the Disney Plus diet, so Blippi's not as much, and we tried to avoid YouTube as much as possible just because I'm done buying toys.
Oh yeah, wow.
Done.
My kid's got an obsessive personality, so I know all about that.
Although it's hilarious, my daughter will be 2 in May. And, she's just beginning to talk. And of course, one of her first words is Bluey.
Mm-hmm.
She'll sit there and she'll dance along with the song and then yell out Bluey.
That's gonna be at least cute as hell. You know what I mean? Like that's a cute word to say. It's not like, like my daughter. One of my daughter's first words was "damn it." So, and the cutest little, because she was a month early preemie, so she's still tiny to this day. And you walk around, la la la, damn it, la, la, damn it. I'm like,
oh,
how do I fight that?
My wife just chastised me. Yeah, my daughter turns 2 in March.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, I said May. It's been a long day. So, other question. Have you watched Captain Underpants?
I'm a little bit familiar with Captain Underpants. We haven't watched it yet, but that could easily go on the list.
I know of it from the books because my nephew is big on the books. Captain Underpants. What are the other ones? The other ones made from that author, Dog Cop or something like that. I don't know. They're like comics. Beyond that, no.
Okay.
I know it's huge, but no.
I do remember that there were incidents following it. That it was just one of those things that we probably shouldn't have watched.
It's like
so.
Listen,
if only there was a podcast that I had paid attention to beforehand, where I could learn about the shows.
Right. Yeah. If only someone was out there doing the hard work.
Listen, Blippi disappeared. Listen, Blippi disappeared from my house for a while, no matter how good it was. Once I found out the history of that guy.
Once
I found out about it, things
issues.
Things disappeared for a while, and then my son got pissed because one of the guys who started out, Nicky Notes, vanished without a trace, and he was obsessed with that guy. Like I have his CD, I have his demos from Bandcamp as a solo artist.
Wow!
Like in my car because he loves listening to him.
Sure.
You could care less about Blippi now. Right. So, it's one of those things. I mean, he goes back and he'll check it out now, but Captain Underpants is kind of a cool one. I heard there was some controversy about that at some point, but there's always going to be something.
Yeah.
People will always try to extract something bad from the good.
Yeah, for sure.
That's usually how that works. I mean, look at, like I said, all the 90s cartoons that we watch. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were just bad laden.
So now as a parent going back and watching some of the things that you watched when you were a kid, I didn't get a chance to listen to your latest episode, but there's certainly a difference in the content that is on TV now for kids than there
Very
was
much.
20 years ago.
We don't have Saturday morning cartoons anymore.
Well, no, we don't have Saturday morning.
I mean, that's a huge one.
But I mean, I grew up, showing my age just a little bit. I grew up with 80s cartoons and G.I. Joe and He-Man and the original run of Transformers. And, there were guns all over the place. And you don't find guns. I mean, sure, nobody actually got shot in G.I. Joe.
Right.
But
it's like Ninja Turtles, nobody actually got hit.
Right. I mean, what do you think looking back on those older shows as a parent now?
Yeah, so that's actually a lot of what our most recent episode's about. We did sort of a 90s nostalgia episode, and it was really mostly focused on sort of the Nickelodeon cartoons from the early to mid 90s. But we talked about even months ago, we talked about like Rugrats. That was a show that was when I was like the right age for Rugrats. It was coming out. And we always thought it was a really fun show. And yeah, there's some like adult stuff hidden in there. And with almost that whole generation of cartoons, it seemed like it basically there was a point in the 90s, it feels like, and maybe this is true for the late 80s too. I was born in 86, so I missed the 80s from a entertainment standpoint. But yeah, there was basically like either when I was describing Rugrats, I was like, I went back and watched some episodes, and that show's garbage. It's just bad. Like it's fun to watch, but there's nothing in it that's worth anything.
Right.
And it was basically either all cartoons that were like that, or shows that were like that, or shows that were like overtly educational that were kind of beating you over the head with education. Things like Barney and a bunch of like the sort of after school special type shows. And there wasn't really anything in between like Bluey, that was both entertaining and educational, and there was something for the parents too. It was like there wasn't anything really like that. Something changed in either the late 90s or early 2000s where someone had the bright idea to like, let's start making good shows, like not just classic shows, because like again, I'm not dunking on shows that are purely for entertainment, but if you're I think we've talked about this idea that like a lot of people are like, no, you can't just like let your kids sit and watch TV. And the reason for that isn't because there's a problem with TV. The reason for that is there's not been great programming. And so like now you can, like, we could leave Cora to sit and watch all 45 episodes of Bluey, and that's fine. We're totally okay with, and she'll enjoy it, and she'll get something out of it. And so like I think that there's a big difference, not necessarily in like how well the shows were like animated or produced or whatever, but as far as the content.
Yeah, I mean, I'd 100% agree on that. Also, in the I find it hard now. I've gone back and watched some of the things that I loved as a kid.
Oh boy.
And tarnished that memory because I like get 20 minutes in, I'm like, oh, this is crap.
That's like watching Ninja Turtles.
Awful.
Like, holy shit.
For me, it was Power Rangers. I went back and tried to watch Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That was my whole jam when I was a kid. I couldn't watch 2 episodes of it.
Yeah, my son went through a Power Ranger kick like right about a year ago. And it's just like, oh, this is so bad now.
Yeah.
That I tried to get him to watch Voltron. I was like, Voltron, this show is so amazing. There's robots, and then I sat down. I was like, oh, okay, maybe not.
Have you tried the new Voltron?
I got
Not
my
yet.
nephew. I got my nephew into watching that. He didn't quite get some of the deeper nuances of a lot of the metaphorical stuff, but or existentialism type of thing. But yeah, the visual aspect, you're like, oh my god! I'm like, yeah, we're meeting in the middle here tonight. Tonight,
Yep.
this is the night. Yeah, some of those old stuff, even Transformers, some of those old ones. Jesus,
No, they don't hold up.
No.
Not very well.
Transformers. In the '90s, Beast Wars, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
such a technologically speaking was such a thing. Like nobody had ever, it was breaking new ground for what it was. But Jesus, whew, that is rough.
Yeah.
Well, in a comfort to parents worldwide who have watched all 40 some odd episodes of Bluey 40 some odd times, season 2 comes to Disney Plus next week.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned that before the show started, and I was so
Good.
happy.
I didn't know that.
I knew
Yeah.
it was coming sometime. Can't wait.
We've been catching the random season 2 episode on Disney. And I think in the Disney Now app, you can find them, but it's just easier on Disney Plus.
Finish it all at once. Yeah.
Yeah. So your show, how it's, I guess, with the pandemic going on, it's pretty easy to record your show when you live with your co-host. What kind of recording do you do? Do you have a studio that you work in?
Nope, you're
Okay.
looking at it.
Okay.
I've got a desk. This is my where I work, and then I swap out my work laptop for my podcast laptop, and I do like my Zoom meetings on the same microphone. I like switch into a mixer for when we record, but
Oh, nice.
no, it's basically this. We've got two mics hooked up to booms on either side of my desk, and just swap out computers when it's time to record.
Yeah, you said earlier that you have a background in music education and music. Did you learn anything about recording at that point?
Not really. I did like in high school. I did a little bit of tech stuff. I was like a band and chorus and theater geek, so I spent a little bit of time around sound and light boards. So I learned a little bit about that, and I did do a little bit of that when I was teaching as well. I taught for a couple of years.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
and when I did that, I inherited like, oh, you're the music teacher, so you must know how microphones work. And I was like, I know, but okay. And I learned how to run the giant board that they had at my school, but not really. Pretty much everything I learned uh, through podcasting.
That's however you learn it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I I was also a theater major and have a profession in theater now. My background is in lighting, and people are like, "Oh, well, you know how to run a light board, so you can run the audio console, right?" And I'm like,
Yeah, it's all knobs
"Yeah,
and
there's
faders. It's
faders," and
easy,
I'm just
right?
like, "Sure,
I feel like
that's
most people do just
not
fall
even
into it and just
remotely the right thing, but sure."
you fail upwards.
Um, in some cases, just fail, but
Yeah, that's how it works. Though that's half the fun.
well, that's
It has been an adventure though, because if you do go back and listen to our first about I think 10 episodes, I think on our 10th episode we swapped into the setup we have now. Um, those first 10 episodes, man, are just garbage from from an audio standpoint. Like we had a lot of fun recording them, but I think initially we tried recording into the same mic. We had like a Blue Yeti, and that was a bad decision um, for our setup. Not to knock the whole microphone, but
Mhm.
um, so we did that for a while. We tried recording actually separately, like we had Audacity running on two different machines at the same time, and then like try to stitch them together afterwards, and that was a terrible idea.
It is a lot of work.
And then one day I was like, hey, just a heads up, I ordered an audio interface and two microphones and pop filters and everything we need to make this actually sound good. Just a heads up. And that's where we are now.
I like it. What kind of microphones are you using? I can't quite see
These
it.
are Yeah, it's a two Audio Technica, the 2005
Oh, cool.
USB and XLR. So I run it USB for work, and I run XLR for podcast.
Nice.
And I say, yeah, the auto technos and the Shores are usually most of the way, usually the way to go if you're going to go above. Like, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. Like, so I want to be like, be a professional in a recording studio, but I also don't want to be like the guy with the I have like the blue microphone that's hitting my backpack right now, which
Right.
is like the $50 go to, for a refurb. So that's a good middle ground.
Yeah.
Especially for
Yeah.
podcasting, unless you're Joe Rogan over here or something, it's not really a point.
Yeah.
Or one of those like 5%ers that are making this like a true career.
I think we spent less than $200 on our whole rig. Like,
Yeah.
not counting the laptop I picked up, which was also cheap. So,
which is what I can do next. This is a Chromebook I'm on right now. So,
I mean, it's I keep trying to say 2020, but it's 2021.
Yeah.
Thankfully, and
we're all there.
yeah, and there's tons of wonderful introduction options out there, especially given 2020's wonderful surprise that everybody learned how to telecommute for 9 months. The availability of audio and video interfaces is really out there now,
and the community at that too. It's like you can add. There's nothing you can't ask somebody somewhere that's going to be able to help you. I'm in a bunch of different Facebook groups just for that purpose.
Yeah.
If I have a question, be like, hey, because Bree doesn't know, I'm like, here, let me just pop on for half a second. Someone's going to answer me right quick, and I'll be able to answer, or at least get in the right direction. Versus sitting here treading water. You're like, I guess we're going to stay mediocre for a little longer.
And there's so many things there's so many things. Again, like I said, everything I learned from podcasting, but part of it is because of the pandemic. Like for work, my boss's boss was like, so a ton of people at work have like picked up a decent like separate mic because they're tired of seeing people like me who have like a good microphone. Like, oh, you can see he's got something good running there. So they picked up a $30 or $40 sort of standalone mic on Amazon or something. She's like, I don't want that, but I do want like a decent set of headphones that has with a microphone that sounds good. And she's like, I can't find anything like under $100. She's like, I'm looking at Bose. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to find those. I was like, here's what you need to do. And I told her, I was like, you need to go find a gaming headset. I was like, because Natalie teaches, she remote, what does she do? She teaches English to students in China. And so she does that every morning for like 2 or 3 hours. And she runs off of a Razer gaming headset. And she's like, yeah, it's comfortable. I can hear them well. The audio is good. I'm like, that's what you need. I was like, here's the thing, before the pandemic, mainly gamers needed like comfortable long wear headphones with mics.
Right.
And now we all need it. So that's where you got to go to find those. And you can find them like pretty cheap too if you don't get all the extra like RGB and stuff running all over it.
I was actually going to ask if hers has RGB.
It's not.
For that extra 10% performance.
That's right. Yeah, better. She doesn't need the extra sniping skills that come with all that RGB.
I was gonna say, yeah, I have these right here, which is like what we got from some of the monetizing that we've done. But I have a pair of what he has, the AKGs headsets, which I have from my turntable already to listen to vinyl. So as soon as I get a new mic, I'll be doing that soon too. I'll be upgrading from these for podcasting.
Well, I can off air. I can tell you all about this one.
There you go.
Oh yeah, you got the Blue Yeti.
No, it's a fake Yeti.
Oh, it's a fake Yeti. Okay.
I was going to say I have,
but it works.
I got my snowball.
Yeah, you got a snowball.
Yeah, I have the Chromebook, so it doesn't really want to link up well. It doesn't want to do multiple things at once, even if I have a split. Yeah. It's a bit, and my laptop's a bit old, so we'll see how that goes. So I'm using these cheap old things for right now. They're already broken. They're already broken. Yeah, they broke the whole siding split already.
That's something I've encountered a lot too, is like gear shaming among podcasters. Like, what's the point? Like,
as long as it sounds good, that's really what it's about.
I frequently go into these Facebook groups now that almost every day someone's asking, which microphone should I get? Should I get the Rodecaster? And I'm always like, no, you shouldn't. You should get the cheapest mic that sounds good.
Yes.
Especially if you're just starting out. Like if you've been doing it a while and you're serious,
Yeah.
then
Well, people are like, yeah, you have to get the best thing you can afford when you start. I'm like, that is false. If your show, budding podcasters out there, if the main selling point of your show is how good it sounds, there's probably a problem.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
if your show isn't like fun, isn't if the subject isn't fun, unless if it's music, okay. Like if it's a music podcast, that's one thing. But like if your show is people talking to each other and the main thing people are saying is the audio sounds good, something's wrong.
Yeah. Although that being said, if my wife's still listening, we desperately need to get a Shure SM7B at some point.
Well, sure.
That's what we're pushing for this show, you know.
Yeah, we need to upgrade.
Badly, I do definitely.
So what's something that you've learned over the last year and a half that you didn't know before, that if you could go back and tell yourself as a starting podcaster, what would that be?
That's a good question. It's probably as much of a thing as I just made about audio and stuff. It's like I think the main thing would have been like here's the bare minimum to get started and make it sound good, because my biggest regret is how those first few episodes sound, because because we love the subject of the show so much. I wish that the audio quality of those first few like met that. There's not much though. We've had a freaking blast doing it.
It helps that like I said, it helps that the relationship aspect. It's like the instant flow. There's no weird awkward first date type of like where our show we mix and match people as we are able to. We have a nice community building of new guys, much like yourself, and ones that have joined us along the way. That if we need someone to kind of jump in, because we can't do it, Bree can't, our other host Chris Revel can't do it, because now we have Rob who got coaxed into doing it from his wife, and we have Don who he's Game On Gaming and Game On Sports. The same thing. We kind of shuffle in and out. So that flow is definitely a big thing, because we have a new guy come in. It's like a first date. We're like, I hope the guest is really good, because
I feel awkward.
Yeah. First date syndrome, heavy.
Well, but even then, like we did an interview really early on with someone who was like, man, I can't imagine doing a podcast with my wife. And I was like, that's too bad. Like, it's a lot of fun. Like we're like, and it helps. I mean, every relationship's different, but like we're also best friends, and so like it's really easy for us to just sit and talk, and that's what a lot of our reviews bear out. Is the hosts have great energy or great chemistry, and we're like, well, yeah, we've been married for 11 years, like that's what happens.
That's awesome. My wife and I have been talking about trying to find ways to technically do this at the same time, to host together, and I appreciate as a husband hearing you say that, because I love doing things with my wife, and it's and again, going back to your Bluey episode, it's along with the sad trope of the goofy father who doesn't do anything, the bickering parents is also something that I love seeing disproven.
That's
definitely. I forgot the question that I was going to ask. That was a good answer.
Yeah, I try to calm my wife. I always nudge about the whole podcasting or video, because I'm more of a video than the audio. Because I've been helping behind the scenes with podcasts for on and off for years. There's a show called Lost at Home out of Vermont that I've been friends with for years. Like I visited him, spent a weekend at my friend's house, abandoned my family, went for the weekend, and did their show up there directly. And that's all audio. So when I started trying to do my own, I got about 7 episodes in and realized, one, I'm terrible by myself. and two, audio is not my bag. Like I'm more interactive personality wise, more of a character in that way. So I have to do it video wise. So when they suggested do live, I don't think it was ever a hesitation. If they would have just be like, we're just going to do an audio show, I probably would have been like, nah.
Yeah.
Nah, whereas my wife, she'd be the opposite. She doesn't like video at all. Self-conscious person. She doesn't like it. So she'd be like, oh, if it's audio, sure, what the heck? I'm gonna bring up the mass hole in me and we'll, let the good times roar.
So the pandemic, as a parent, I know that you've had the added trying to figure out what to do with your child who's stuck inside.
Yeah.
But also as a podcaster, has that enabled you to do more than you thought was possible before everybody was stuck in it, just churning out content?
Yeah, it's definitely easier to access what we need to do. So because pretty quickly we ran out of stuff we already knew. And we had to start like every week, like, okay, I'm gonna watch a movie, watch a show. We'll talk about it, and like trying to find time to do that on our own. I don't know. It's hard to quantify because we started in December of 2019. Our first episode dropped November 30th, and so we hadn't been doing it for very long before we were in pandemic mode. It's hard to kind of compare before and after. But yeah, it's definitely been interesting. It's been hard. I feel like podcasts were already kind of in a boom before, and I feel like they really picked up, like new podcasts being created during the pandemic. So maybe kind of getting your voice out there has been kind of a challenge.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got a more captive audience than we did in February of last year.
Well, I think like anything when podcasting first became a thing, and then a big thing, like the Kevin Smiths of the world, and Nerdist, and I'm trying to think of some of the other big ones at the time, where they kind of Rogan, like one of the ones that started and really just blew up and dominated. Everybody followed them, and then quickly realized a year or so in, they're like, this isn't what. Why am I doing this still? Whatever. And then because they're like the top 2% of people in the world that still do podcasts are making an actual living. They're making something of it, whether or not they came from popularity and not first. And then it kind of started fading out a little bit. And then like all the riffraff started kind of walking away from it. And then the pandemic happened, and all of a sudden everybody's like, hey, I still got this crap kicking around, or, hey, I can go get this stuff cheap off of Amazon. Like everybody's ordering at once, and I can make this a thing. So it's been kind of interesting to see how that kind of bounces back. I mean, that's kind of one, not directly, but how it happened with us here now. So, I mean, it wasn't necessarily COVID related, but I mean, it certainly helped the cause. Yeah. So it's always a good thing. I like how that kind of came back around, like the ebb and flow kind of bounced, ricocheted back around versus just kind of petering out as another fad or another trend.
Yeah, there's definitely been, and something we've been pleasantly surprised by has been the sort of indie podcast community on Twitter. Because Twitter is most of the time like not a place that I want to spend a lot of time, just generally. But we knew from the beginning we needed to. We didn't really want to get into like a Facebook group. I think we didn't actually want to bombard like a lot of our family and friends. We wanted to kind of start like easy. We didn't want to be the like brand new podcasters going up to all our family and friends being, hey, listen to our podcast.
I never really share mine on my personal account.
So we started, the first thing we really pushed on was Twitter, and we like right away found like this super supportive community of indie podcasters, which is really fascinating. And now we've got something like I think we have something like 2,600 followers or something on Twitter, and easily 1,500 of them are indie podcasts. Like,
I think that what it makes it, I think on that end, because that's where we focus on mostly too. It's always seems to be Twitter is the most popular thing. Yeah, it's easy. You have so many characters and that's it. You kind of get right down to the point. And whereas like Facebook, you can do these long drawn out messages, posts, and then you're getting in all these different groups, and majority of them are a bunch of jerks. They're just all self-absorbed people. They only care about, what they're doing. They could care less about you,
Right.
Well, like for a like or review for review. I'm like, that's great. That doesn't do you anything.
Or my favorite, which is like the person dropping in like, I'm really discouraged. We just launched our podcast a month ago and we're only getting 1,000 listens a day. I'm like, shut up. Just go home.
A day. Imagine if on like Spotify, if a band found out they had 1,000 listeners a day.
I know.
Just like a little indie act, like a little bedroom thing, man.
But they're like,
they would melt like a candle, man.
Podcast, we're only making, with that many, we're only making a couple $100 a month on our podcast. I'm like, are you joking? Most of us are paying $20-$30 out here. Like, we're losing money every month on our podcast. So just shut up.
Yeah, I hope you're I was gonna say $1,000 a day, 1,000 people a day. I hope you're monetizing that.
Right. Yeah.
Good Lord, get your Patreon running hard. Jesus, it's wild.
So, well, you've already said that Twitter is pretty much where you go for social media. Where do you actually publish your shows? Where can people find your show?
So our show is hosted on Spreaker, but it's everywhere. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. I think picked us up. I think we're in there. Yeah, we're pretty much everywhere you could search for a podcast at this point.
Very cool,
including like some ones that I didn't know existed, like Deezer, which is like a primarily
I've heard of that.
I think German podcast distributor, and all of a sudden one day I was looking at our stats. It's like you got 3 downloads from Deezer. I was like, what?
I've heard bands using them over like Spotify or as an alternative with that too, because they pay out better.
Oh, okay.
They're a bit more fair, them and like Tidal, and there's certain ones that have a better percentage, considering you can get 1 million streams on Spotify and make all like $5, especially for an artist, forget it. There's so many of those out there now. It's cool though. I mean, it's one more thing you didn't know.
Yeah. So, we talked about, what's happened on your show in the past. You want to talk a little bit about anything special you've got coming up?
So we're mainly just trying to like keep doing all this. Like we're right now we're in the process of we're getting ready to move. We're gonna move out of like right in the middle of downtown to a little bit easier to afford space now that we're both working remotely full time. My job was like one of these that was like, yeah, it's gonna be remote for now, but eventually you're coming back, and I just transferred into something else that's like, no, there's never gonna be a need for you to be back in an office. So we're moving a little bit out of town. So we're a little bit busy like right this second, but we're just gonna keep doing the same thing. This year we're trying to we were guests on several shows last year, but we really haven't done the guest thing very much yet. We've done it a couple times with family or friends. And so this year we're going to do a little bit more with some other podcasters and get some similar to what we did this past week. We had guests from a show called Welcome to the Bottom, who are just kind of some moms who were talking about life. And we're like, yeah, that's all we do. And so we're gonna probably like maybe once a month have some guests on our show coming up here as well.
I was gonna say I love guesting on shows, so feel free.
Yeah, I always. If you need a follow-up Bluey episode, you can.
Hey, we're gonna need to do a season 2 review, so that's gonna happen.
There you go.
I guarantee I'll be watching
that's
it.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Whether or not my kid cares, I will be.
I was gonna say that. I was like, I don't, if they're there, I don't know, but I will.
That's right.
That's cool. I just blanked.
So What are besides like the kids things? What I was gonna say? What do you think? Some shows maybe that you grew up with, or ones that maybe came out in the '90s span that you think today would either be still good in the light of children now to be watched, or at least something maybe that could be redone eventually and done in a new light that would work better. Because you see how like Ninja Turtles is constantly revived and it constantly is relevant, which is amazing. Whether it's a season or 6 seasons, it's always relevant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's always kids always seem to go for it. Like, it never gets old.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of things like that that are constantly being rebooted anyway. So it's like there's always going to be an animated version of like X-Men out there or something.
I haven't seen one. They haven't had one in a little while though. Now that I think about it,
Yeah,
I think it was Wolverine and the X-Men was the last one. I think
I think you're right.
the one that got canceled after a season. That was a shame.
But then there's like, I think I saw recently there were Toonami versions that were like anime versions of like Batman and the Justice League.
Yeah,
and things like
Batman.
that. So,
I know Batman, X-Men, which is on Netflix now. Which I can't watch it. It's so over. It's like '90s anime.
right.
Like it's just so large and so.
Yeah.
The '90s version of the X-Men.
No, it's they made an anime based off the X-Men.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know how new it is, but it's new to Netflix. And it's like, late 80s into 90s anime movies where it's like so like over the top, everybody's so big and it's just so grandiose and just dramatic, and everything about it is just so over the top.
I think I'd like to see so like a really common thing I get, and this is true kind of across the board, but like a super common kid show trope is like the kids in school kind of thing. So like Doug and Recess and shows like that. I think I would like to see versions of that show of those kinds of shows that were less about like will Doug and Patty Mayonnaise get together, and more about like things that the kid might actually deal with, but that wasn't again like an after school special. Like I'd like to see, I guess I'd just like to see any of those kinds of shows done like in a really smart way that it's not trying to bank on nostalgia. It's just like, here was a really fun show with seriously, honestly, Doug is like a beautiful show if you just look at it. Like it's so colorful and unique.
It's one of those shows that still holds up visually too, which is impressive.
It's a beautiful show. Yes, Pepper Ann. I just saw that comment. We talked about Pepper Ann this week too. But shows like that, I would love to see done in a super smart way that maybe deal with real issues and are able to smartly weave in stuff for grown-ups who might be watching too.
Nice. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about that too. Yeah, I'd be like kind of interweaving the stories to be relevant today, as far as maybe something to be learned, but don't do it in a way that feels so deliberate or so like force fed, because nobody wants to be spoon fed like morals, like over morals.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't need to be, and again, I know we keep going back to it, but like that's what Bluey does so well.
I was just gonna say that
it doesn't force anything on you. Even the titles have almost nothing to do with the point of each episode. Like it just, there's a fun thing that happens, and then there's a twist. There's always some sort of a twist where the kids have to learn a lesson, or sometimes the parents have to learn a lesson, and everyone's kind of there for each other. No one, like kind of like you said, like no one's bumbling, no one's like stupid or something. They're all like just learning. They're all learning together, and so something that can continue to accomplish that. And the thing is, like the other thing I want to say to kind of answer your question is the problem is that there are so many shows that are doing that pretty well now. There's so many shows in like so usually on our show, and we switch this up sometimes. We did recently. But usually Natalie will review something that's a little bit more for younger kids, and I'll review something that's for a little bit older kids that might be up to like TV 14 level. Um, and there's so many without knocking you over the head with like
You're just
like without telling you without trying to tell you
I was born, but where like I think it's Mickey and like where it's the Jack and the Beanstalk, and there's the giant who takes Mickey and rolls him up and puts him in like a cigar.
yeah,
I'm just
right.
like,
yeah.
that was normal when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So not today.
No.
But the show is back. The show is still around. I mean, they have a new version of it out. They just changed like the gun. Like Elmer Fudd doesn't have a gun now. He has like an axe or sickle or something, which is really bizarre. I'm like, why would he be why did a hunter be chasing him around with a hatchet or something?
These are the hard questions. This is what we have to go to Warner Brothers with, and just, hey, what made you think that a hunter would go into the woods with an axe?
Probably because it's a little less ludicrous thing these days with a gun.
Yeah.
Like, why does he have a shotgun? He needs a Tech 9. He needs that Glock 4. He needs to be efficient.
Oh wow.
It's taken a really interesting turn, like just in the last 3 minutes.
I was about to say, on that note, we're coming up on the end of our hour. But I know we already chatted about it again before, but where can people find you on the interwebs?
So you can find us on Twitter at Not For Adults Cast. It's up on the screen right now. That's so cool. And we're like we said before, you can find us anywhere that you get a podcast. We really like to push. This is not a paid advertisement. We really enjoy podchaser.com. That's a great place to get a podcast, but it's mainly a great place to interact with podcasts. You can leave a review there, even if you're not an iPhone user, which is kind of the big thing. You can leave a review if you're an iPhone user, but usually not if you're anything else. So if you're not an iPhone user and you're not on iTunes, then head over to podchaser.com, and that's a great place to check out podcasts and leave reviews and stuff like that. But yeah, that's mainly it. We have a Facebook page and we have an Instagram page, but they're not very active. But we're super active on Twitter. Yeah, that's where you can find us. Awesome.
I will be sure to listen to your episodes. I'm actually got to go and subscribe as soon as we're done here. It's because I really did enjoy it, and
absolutely,
it's a show that I didn't know that I needed in my life until I started listening to it, and I was like, this is absolutely perfect. So
that's cool to hear.
Listen, it's nice to be able to interact like this, but also listen to something about kids shows of all things, where you go, who the hell am I going to talk to about this?
Right.
These adult aspects of these things, breaking it down, because my 5-year-old son doesn't care what I think. My wife certainly doesn't care at this moment. So if I start getting into minutia, she just looks at it and walks away. So
yeah, we have a blast. We do it for about an hour every week and usually talk about a couple of shows or movies. So
yeah,
give it a listen.
Awesome. I will make sure to listen. Mr. Balla, where can the people find you online?
On Twitter, I believe it is at the Irish on Fire. Same thing with Instagram and Content Control, which I will be doing some live short form type of videos for like with different music and all kinds of things in the future on Twitter and Instagram as well, mainly.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Well, again, we are your hosts, Robert and Chris, and you can find out more about our show at www.letschatpodcast.net. Follow us on Twitter at Let's Chat Live. We thank you so much for spending your Tuesday evening with us, and we'll chat with you again soon. Thanks so much, and good night.